Welcome back to You Can Homeschool. I'm Tracey Hagerman, the Happy Homeschooler, and I'm here today with a very special guest. Today I have with me Chauncy Lynn Childs, who is a veteran homeschooler of 6 children. I repeat, 6 children. So she's got double the information that I could ever tell you because I only have 3 kids. So I'm just thrilled to have Chauncey here today. So why don't you go ahead and say hello to our audience and introduce yourself and a little bit about your family.
Hello, everyone, and I'm excited to be here with Tracey. We've been getting to know each other a little better over a couple of calls, and happy to be here and share whatever new information that anybody may need to hear. As Tracey mentioned, I have 6 children, and I've also the last couple of years been working with some of my grandchildren, of course, through the pandemic, as my daughter's been back in school. So picked up a lot of really new information with some of the challenges that are facing kids these days that were a little bit different for me, 15 and 20 and 25 years ago when I first started. So yeah, we got into this in 1997 before I really even had access to the internet. When I decided to jump in with both feet into the boiling water, I didn't have a book. I didn't know a family that homeschooled. I was kind of in a small little community in Northern California. And, I can go into the reasons why we got into it, but my parents were career public school teachers. They were adamantly against me homeschooling and told me I was going to ruin my children, and I didn't know what I was doing. And, I didn't have a college education myself. So I was very sympathetic to them. I didn't really get angry with them for saying that because it was true. I didn't know what I was doing. And I probably had every, chance of ruining my children, but it didn't work out that way. So anyway, that's kind of the background of it. We were in a small town, like I said. My oldest son was going into 8th grade, and I had a daughter going into 5th, and a son coming out of kindergarten into 1st, and all of them were struggling in school. They were all having really a lot of trouble just academically, not so much socially, but academically. There was a little drug gang that had kind of targeted my very sweet 13-year-old son, 12 years old, I guess, turning 13. He very innocent, and he had been targeted and threatened, and the school was doing nothing about it. Plus, they were introducing what we would call now a critical race theory curriculum to the social studies. It was clearly CRT, even back then, 25 years ago. So all of that combined, I thought, I've just got to do this. I'm spending hours at night doing homework packets and getting nowhere. My daughter still isn't reading at, however old she was at that time, whatever, 9 or, 4th grade, finishing 4th grade, still wasn't reading really. And I was working a lot, very hard with her on school site councils and aiding in the class and everything, and nothing was working. So
Okay, so I want to make sure I have this clear. So at that time, you had 3 in school. Did you have 3 little ones as well at that time?
I had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. And then I was just I just gotten pregnant with my 6th when we started that year. Yeah. And I don't do pregnancies well. So that first year was kind of a bust. I'm not gonna lie. I laid a lot on the couch going, kids, get your math done. Kids, sit down. Not a lot happened that year.
And that's okay because one of the things we talk about is the first year homeschooling is not to have any expectation. For most of us, it's a transition year.
Right.
And if you just get through that year, you're doing amazing. So I want to back up a little bit, and you mentioned a number of things. It doesn't sound to me like you were necessarily looking for homeschooling, but instead it seems like you ran into challenges that your kids were having with the school, with the drugs, your daughter not reading. So how did you find out about homeschooling, and how did you navigate that to go from, okay, this isn't working, to we got to do something else?
Right. It's a long time ago. I'm trying to think how this came into my thought process. I think years before I'd had a conversation with somebody very briefly about it was a couple that had no children, and I met them at some event, and we started talking, getting to know each other, and they started talking about homeschooling and how much they thought of it, and how they were going to homeschool their kids. And I'm like, what? You're going to what? Why would you do that? And so they informed me on all kinds of things, and it's just that conversation just kind of sat in my head. And because they were so sure, and they told me so many interesting things that I didn't know. And so I thought that just sat there for a long time. And then it was like the minute there was, and I had actually been thinking about it because my oldest son especially had been having a hard time for a long time. And actually I had probably been thinking about it, and I was in denial. A lot of people go through this. It's right. It's like, well, okay, well, maybe I get home. No, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, well, maybe he's having a lot of trouble. Maybe you should think, no, I'm not going to do that. How you just have this voice that keeps kind of saying, well, maybe you could think about it. No, I'm not going to think about it. And then finally, I remember the day when I went, I guess I'm just going to try this. And everything just kind of went, and that noise, that annoyance stopped happening. And I remember that moment because we were getting ready for a vacation, and everybody's running around. It was really chaotic. And I sat down, and we'd had a wonderful, wonderful summer together. And I had this thought, it doesn't have to end. You can keep spending this wonderful time with your kids, and the summer could keep going. And it wouldn't be summer, but you could keep having these moments. It was just a wonderful summer. And I thought, really? And it was like, yeah, you can just keep enjoying your family.
So you didn't put them back in school that year.
Right.
You just never did that. So tell me then, how did you
What
start
did I do?
that? So from the decision of, okay, we can continue this. My question is,
Yeah.
now
How?
what?
What are we going to do? Well, like I think most people that have no exposure, they don't have somebody they can talk to, they don't have a book they can read, they don't have the internet they can go to. I did school at home. And we were getting ready to go on vacation. So I had mentioned to my mother-in-law, we were going back to see my husband's family in the East. And I mentioned to her that I was going to do this. And she said, oh, I know somebody. And so she picked up the phone and called her. And I went over and visited with this gal for about an hour and made a bunch of notes. She used Saxon Math. She used Signature and Landmark books. She just kind of gave me this, well, try this kind of a thing. And she wasn't doing any particular curriculum. So I just thought, okay, that's how homeschoolers do it. They just do this Saxon Math, and then they do this other thing. So that's kind of how we started. I didn't have a time to look into curriculum. I'm not even sure how I got, back then when we're so used to the internet, just, ordering through the internet. I don't even know how I got Saxon math books, because I wasn't exposed to any. I didn't have any other exposure to resources. I don't know where I got it, but anyway, yeah, that's how I started.
And that's how a lot of us started, us veteran homeschoolers. It was just borrowing stuff, or somebody we knew
Mm-hmm.
suggested something. I almost think sometimes homeschoolers of today have too much information, and it's curriculum overwhelm. It's like, yeah, go on this site and there's 20 programs to choose from. And it's like, I don't have time to check through this. Just tell me the best one.
Yeah, totally. Isn't that totally true? Yeah. And so many families have come to me over the years and said, where do I start? I go, the hardest thing is going to be finding it. Just please don't look at 3 and make a decision. Don't keep researching. Just look at 3. If you feel like you need to do a curriculum, just do 3 and then go forward.
Yeah, that's sage advice right there. So now that you're kind of on the other side of it with your kids, but I understand you're homeschooling some of your grandkids. Can you describe a little bit about that? To what degree are you homeschooling your grandkids?
Well, actually, we just kind of wrapped up some things because my oldest granddaughter is still fully homeschooling. And mom has that well in hand. She's 14 almost, so she's really pretty independent. The 12-year-old son is extremely ADHD. And so we worked with him. I feel like we had a lot of success with him. We got him very well into reading, very well into his, mathematics and a lot of his own interests, and researching his own things and so forth. And she found it's really cool industrial arts charter school for him in the area that's very, very geared to a lot of hands-on learning, that's him. So he just started this last week. This is his first week at that, and he's going to outdoor school, and he's really enjoying it. And the kindergartner is in kindergarten. So I'm actually just in the last few weeks stopped having a lot of responsibility for that, which I'm going to miss it again terribly. But on we go.
Sorry, were you doing it? Was it primarily you doing the homeschooling?
No, I was actually playing tag team with my daughter's in-laws, because she married a man who was also homeschooled, and so his mother was taking them a couple of days a week, and then I was working with them a couple of days a week, and so that was a lot of fun. It was nice because it wasn't this huge burden. But as far as my children, my oldest, my youngest now is 23, and he's finishing up a degree in accounting at BYU, which is this extremely rigorous and difficult degree. And then his older sister graduated in music. She's a very accomplished flutist and pianist, and she's doing also online marketing, and she's a professional photographer. She's kind of a jack of all trades. Then the older son above her is graduated in global supply chain management, and he's working a great job now. And the next son up is in dental school. He kind of went a circuitous route finding dentistry. He graduated with his BA at about 23, and found out he didn't really like what he had thought he was going to like. So he worked for a while and figured that out and went back to dental school. Interestingly, I never did any science with the kids other than going to the Science Museum in Portland with the Children's Museum. And so when it came to, and he never took any science in college either, and then he decides to go to a science related field. He had to start from scratch knowing nothing, which is a real testament, I think, to our system. Not my system, but the system of homeschooling. The fact that we can teach children how to learn, how they learn, how to love to learn, and that they have the confidence to go into something completely brand new, and that they have no real frame of reference to, because I want to chase this dream now, and they can go do it. Not that it isn't hard. Okay. He's got to work really hard, but he's getting straight A's and he's doing amazing. And then the next daughter is in occupational therapy. She's just gone back to school too. She ran her own massage clinic for several years, six years, and decided to go back and become an occupational therapist. And then the oldest son is a lawyer. So all kinds of everywhere, all over the place.
Now, a couple things that you said, I just wanted to highlight to our audience is, number one, you said you didn't teach science at home, and yet look at the different fields your kids have gone into. And that's what we've always said, is if you can teach them reading, writing, and math, and they can be good at those, they can learn anything. And homeschooling affords them, it teaches them how to learn, not exactly what to learn. So that's beautiful. You have a testament of 6 of your kids, 6 out of 6 that seem to have done well when we look beyond from an academics standpoint. So that's truly what we see over and over and over again in the homeschooling community. So that's fantastic. And the second thing I want to mention is, you were talking about your son who went to dental school after doing something totally different. And the statistics now say that our kids will change jobs every 3 to 5 years. That is the expectation, because everything is changing so quickly. Jobs are changing so quickly, and COVID has totally revamped how we work. So they're saying that the skills that kids now coming out of high school, universities, colleges, they need to be able to transition and pivot. And what you're highlighting is homeschooling allows you to do that. It really, really gives the kids the flexibility to think outside the box and be able to make those courageous moves.
Well, you nailed it in saying that if you just teach the basics, that's how you pivot. If you are not confident and have mastered to some degree something in the basics, you don't have the confidence academically and intellectually to go on. That's the biggest problem the public schools are having right now. They're not even giving them, it's all social engineering now. It's all about playing to the feelings and this sort of thing, instead of getting down to helping children have a foundation to pivot, to go into online things, or to go into, their own business or anything they want to do, and plus they've spent too many years hating being where they are. And at home, they get to explore, if you're, in my, I don't want to say if you're doing it right, but I think if you're doing it in a way that inspires and encourages the love of learning, then that's just something they have the rest of their life.
Yeah. And you hear that so often, like kids, when they first start school, they're so excited. Those younger years, usually they're excited to go to school. They want to go to school. And then somewhere very quickly, it seems like you hear, I hate school. I don't want to go. I feel sick today. You hear that. You see that over and over. And then the teens, totally, a lot of them unmotivated. And it's sad because learning should be fun. Kids are natural learners. We're all natural learners when it's fun and when we can do it in a way that makes sense to each of us. And homeschooling really affords that. So
Absolutely.
what do you see, though, are some of the unique challenges for homeschoolers?
Well, the biggest one, I think, well, there's two of them. If you don't have somebody at home paying attention to it and doing it, we have so many two-income families, which is something we need to address, and something that, I know you talked to Shane a couple of episodes ago. And so he's talked a little bit about our platform, which is what we're trying to do, is come up with an entity that will spread the love around, spread the opportunity around for homeschooling of some sort. People who have formed pods, micro schools, whatever, can open up a little bit and maybe take in some more children. So we want to help people to do that. And the second one is all the ADHD, the autism. Those are huge. And that was a big eye opener for me working with my grandkids, because even though I think my older kids did have a touch of ADHD, they were not severe. They learned fine, but I think in the school setting, it made it harder for them. At a home setting, it was much easier for them to learn because there wasn't these strict schedules. Like you said, we were talking about organization. I was very relaxed and I got to be a very interest-based model for my family, and our schedule was very loosely, the only time I set timers was for math because it worked well for everybody. I had my really strong math learners that loved it when it was a challenge for them to finish their lesson in 30 minutes. And for the ones that hated math, it was like, you only have to do it for 30 minutes. And the only reason I ever even did that is because we have the state testing here in Oregon. So I had to speak to that. I had to address certain things. I couldn't just say, nobody has to do math, nobody has to do it, language arts. So we had to do a little bit of that to keep them in homeschooling. But I think those are the biggest challenges, is all the learning disabilities right now, the autism spectrum stuff that's going on, and we need to figure that out in our society big time.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because one of my daughters has ADHD, which she wasn't actually diagnosed till almost university. We kind of figured out in her teens, and I always knew there was something, didn't know exactly what it was, but by the time she had a formal diagnosis, she said, well, Mom, we had already found most of the strategies that worked. Because homeschooling, if something wasn't working, you try something else. If a certain curriculum's not working or a certain way of doing something, you have that flexibility to keep trying. different things. But you're right, having a parent present to be aware of those things and having the right supports for the kids that need a little bit more are crucial. And there's a huge population of kids out there that are getting missed, that we hear about all the time. So I want to ask you, on another vein, what did you find some of the most surprising aspects of homeschooling?
That instead of it being crazy and chaotic and, nutso, my whole life just slowed down. Everything that was one of the really weird feelings that I had right off the bat, was like, oh, I mean, we get up in the morning when we want. We went out and did chores together, and then we came back in and we had breakfast and got ready for the day, and then we had our devotional. And it was just all this, it's not that the kids weren't, doing whatever six kids do, okay? But it's just that, I didn't ever feel like this frantic feeling like the kids are not on grade level and they're not getting and they're not, we have the homework packet and we have to get them to the bus. And then we have it, it's just like all that just went away. It was just like, we're just going to just chill. And today, if none of us can sit at the table and do any of this, we're just going to go out and work in the garden, or we're going to go to the space, OMSI. We're going to go to the beach. We're going to do something else because we're just going to enjoy each other and take a break for a little bit. And we have spring break whenever we want. So that was one of the most surprising things about it. And then it was that the older kids just waking up to, you have choices. And I think the second thing I learned really quickly was I have to turn their education over to them. They have to take responsibility. They have to have ownership in their own education. And I started telling them, this is your life. I mean, when you're 18, you're going to tell me, I'm out of here. And so let's just address that right now and decide this is your job, to become educated and prepare yourself. I'm here to mentor you. I'm here to be your resource to make it happen. What do you want to do? Let's learn it. Let's do it. And man, that was just magic at our house. And all of my kids, but my oldest, decided to go up to the community college and high school. They usually went a little bit to high school and went, okay, I get it. Don't want to do that anymore. But they still went to the ball games. They still participated in sports. They still did band, and they did the prom and all that stuff. So they kind of had all the fun part and the yucky part. Just put it that way.
And that's what you're speaking to right at the beginning, the flexibility. It's like, and some people think it's an all or nothing, or like I'm homeschooling or not. And you always have the choice. You can homeschool for a year, you can go to high school or not. There's so much flexibility, and it's the beauty.
And mistakes were made, right? I mean, it's not like this was smooth. This was not a smooth sail. There were some squalls. There were some shipwrecks. I'm not going to, because I don't want to embarrass my kids, but they made some errors. And I would just, I felt very at peace saying, so how's that working out for you? What do you think we should do about this? What do you want to do about it? And not feeling, another thing is letting go of the feeling like you have to make everything right. You have to answer to your peers, the other parents who are watching this and going, man, she's a terrible parent, going, you know what? I'd rather have my kids work through some of this now and figure out that life has real consequences than try to run around and make everybody else think I'm a perfect parent. That's not what real life is.
I love your candor, because it's true. When they get to adulthood, their decisions, each one of us don't all make perfect decisions, right? We're imperfect beings, right? But there's consequences. And as adults, we have to face that. So if you can have them do that while they have a mentor in their environment, while they have someone who's going to support them and say, okay, you messed up, let's try something else.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Homeschooling is the perfect venue for that, because who's going to love them and support them more than their parents? Yeah.
And if you don't have that relationship with them at that point, through those adolescent teenage years, when they're older, it's much harder. If they know that no matter what they do, you're gonna put your arm around them and say, man, I'm sure that hurts, or I'm sure that, that must not feel very good. The decision you made, or that's the consequences of that decision. But I'm here. Let's figure it out. There's always solutions. Because they've continued to make some mistakes. Guess what? They're people. And guess what? And they will, and I love it when they come to me. Like, I've had my kids come to me and say, you really need to not do that, Mom. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. That was my mom. Got it. I'm not going to do that anymore.
So they have the trust and the comfort knowing that they can be transparent
Yeah.
with you and that you're gonna take it
Yeah.
and listen. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. That's a hard place to get to. That's really, really
It does
awesome.
hurt sometimes.
Yeah.
But on we go.
And I always think that the people that love you the most are going to be honest, and we should be able to take that. So I actually
Yeah.
think that's really beautiful.
Mhm.
So, what do you believe now that you're looking back were the most positive outcomes of your family's homeschool journey?
Hands down, the relationships, and the fact that when we get together, when we're all together, we talk about books, we talk about music, we talk about the things we're learning, the things the kids are still learning, or the things that I'm learning. I mean, I still have things in common with my kids because we're all still doing interesting things. And when I call and talk to them, I say, I've started this new business because, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm learning. Have you ever tried this? Or, man, I read this great book. You guys have to read this book, or they do the same for me. They call me and tell me about stuff that they're learning and doing. And I just love that, because you feel like you're just always connected. And hands down, that has to be the most satisfying part of our home education experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just for that reason alone, sounds like it's worth
Yeah.
it. It's been worth it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's awesome, Chauncey. Now, a couple podcasts ago, I spoke to Shane Eastman, and I believe he's the co-founder of a wonderful new platform that you and he are launching in July. And he did talk a little bit about your platform. So I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about it. You already alluded to it a little bit, but if you can tell us a little more about it. And I know it's the OWL Home Education Network, and I know there's an acronym in there for OWL, so maybe you can expand on that as well.
Right. So Shane suggested OWL because it's kind of a no-brainer going along with learning and children, right? It's kind of, I don't know, iconic or whatever. And I said, yeah, that sounds great. I could see the logo, and yeah, let's go with that. And then the next morning I woke up and I had this brainstorm going on as I was awaking. That OWL was an acronym that stands for one whole learning. And those words don't really flow, right? But the concepts do. The one person, whether it's one person, one family, one community, or one globe, however you want to look at it, one country. But the one person is supremely important in our, and for Shane and I. If we can reach one person and give them the opportunity to become all that they can become through a great education, that has a ripple effect. And then you look at one family and how they can have a ripple effect. So focusing on one person and the importance of education for just one person. The word whole just means becoming whole. And that's what good education makes us whole throughout our lives, right? It doesn't we're not going to be finished people by the time we're 18. We're going to continue to learn. And the more we learn, the more whole we become, learning about ourselves, learning about others, learning about history, learning about literature, learning about science, whatever it is. We become greater and greater whole person as we learn. And then learning, of course, is a lifelong pursuit that we don't ever lose sight of the importance of continuing to add to our intellect and changing our lives because of what we learn every day. So that's kind of the thought behind it.
That's the thought. So, in your own words, can you give us a little details about exactly what this platform is and how it can be valuable to homeschoolers in general?
Yeah. So it's about connections. It's about making connections with and finding that person or that group or that situation, that curriculum, whatever it is, that will help you to find your groove as a homeschooler. I believe in a perfect world that all education is private. And whether it's a group of parents getting together and forming a private school or a community school or a pod or a micro school or whatever it is, that when education gets back into the hands of parents making those decisions, and they are very involved in whatever way they can be, that's when we all start really flourishing, and we have great prosperity, and we have great happiness, and we have great peace. I just, I probably, like you, believe that it really begins with education. And it's the great equalizer, right? So our platform is to try to help people find those situations, those connections that they can make, whether it's in the homeschool community or in a private school or whatever it is. That's, in a nutshell, what we're trying to do.
And it sounds so awesome because, like I said, when we started it, we did have a homeschool community, but to have something online that we could access and make connections just sounds wonderful to me. And nowadays we can do it from a global perspective. It's just
Right.
incredible opportunity. So we
Yeah.
will have in the show notes your links to that, and I understand that people can go to a sign up page. There's no cost to sign up to learn more about this platform.
No
And
cost. Yeah.
no, okay.
Yeah.
And so you will certainly put those links in the show notes. Is there anything else specifically about the platform that you wanted to mention?
No, I think that's just about it. I hope people just go and check it out and sign up for it, and have a mentality of seeing how they can serve, how they can serve in the community, because we all need to help each other with this. There's a perfect storm brewing in the public school system, and there's going to be a lot of people who need help, and they need direction, and they need support and resources. So all of your listeners, I would really just encourage you to start. I know everybody feels very busy and homeschooling is no joke. It's very time consuming, and it's very emotion consuming. But especially those of us that are on the other side of it, if we can just think about giving some of our time, getting on the platform and joining a chat or whatever we can do, will be helpful to people coming on.
Absolutely. So you'll find that at www.owlhomeeducationnetwork.com. So again, the link will be in the show notes. So I think we're coming to the end of our time together, Chauncey, but I wanted to ask you, do you have any other final words of wisdom for our audience?
Oh, final words of wisdom. Gosh, that's a hard one. I guess I just would express that if you can do it, to do it. It's worth it. It's not easy, but it will be the greatest blessing in your life. I don't know how to put it any other way. To take that time with your children, and keep doing it until you find your way that brings you joy in your life. I think too many of us, from what I've read on a lot of Facebook pages, beat ourselves up if it's not all perfect. And we operate out of a lot of fear sometimes that we're not keeping our kids up with all the rest of the kids, or there's a lot of things that people beat themselves up over. And I would just say, don't do that. Really get down to your core value of why you're doing this and create that culture in your home of joy. That's the most important gift you can give to your kids.
Yeah, because it doesn't really matter what's happening next door. It
Mm-hmm.
matters what's happening in your house. And with homeschooling, it can be an awesome adventure.
It is, and it will be if you go about it that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I really enjoyed hearing from you. You speak so easily. I think after all those years of doing it, it just comes so naturally to you.
I really believe it. It's not platitudes. It's the truth.
Oh,
It's really the truth.
can absolutely tell. So thank you for your time. And to our listeners, remember you can homeschool. It can be awesome. Have a great week, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you, Tracey. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.